This sikha is very interesting because, on the one hand, the Rebbe speaks over here about the great spiritual advantages of all the revelations in science that's been happening the last few hundred years, and how this corresponds with all the revelations of the inner part of the Torah, and this is all a preparation for Moshiach's coming. At the same time, parenthetically, the Rebbe says that attending college is completely and totally out of the question. So it's very interesting. It gives like 3 reasons why a Jew should never attend college. And this is in addition to the fact that explaining the general idea how the development in sciences is connected with the coming of Moshiach. Let's see it inside. The Rebbe only compares and says that these days what we see in the colleges are A, B, and C, which the things that he describes was not in that way when the Rebbe went to college, one could say. But the Rebbe doesn't talk about himself in that regard. We have in our parsha, it says when Noach was 600 years old, so then all the well springs opened up and all the openings in heaven opened up. So the Zohar uses this as a date and a revelation, indicating revelation. Water indicates intellect and revelation. First of all, we're going to read it in Aramaic, and then he's going to translate it in Hebrew. And then now he's going to have the Hebrew translation. In the sixth hundred of the 6,000. In other words, we are now in the year 5,785. So we're in the 6,000. Just like when we say our capital. So if you're 20, you say capital Chaf Aleph, because we're in our 21st year. The same thing from the year 5,000 on the Hebrew calendar, we're inside the 6,000th year, the sixth millennium, and also when we're past 5,500, so we're in the 600th year of the 600th of the 6,000. So in that period, that the wisdoms and the gates of Chachma above and the wisdoms of below will open up, and through that the world will be prepared to go up to and to enter the 7th millennium. In other words, the period after 6,000, going into 6,000 plus, where it's the time of Moshiach. This is all hinted in this pasuk that we just not quoted from Noach. When we're talking about mayonis, well springs, that means something that's coming from below. When it says the windows of heaven opened up, that's Tare the Chachmas Ilah. That's what the Zohar says, the gates of the Chachma of above, La'ela. Uchachmas La'ela hainu Chachmas HaTorah. V'chachmas La'sata Chachmas HaOlam. There is spiritual wisdom that became revealed after the year 5,500 of creation, and physical wisdom, sciences and so on, that became revealed after the year 5,500 of creation. So now it's 5,785. So we're talking here about 300 years ago, there became a great influx of knowledge, both in the spiritual realm, in the inner part of the Torah, like Moshiach explained, and also in the sciences. Tzemach Tzedek was explaining that the Alter Rebbe, his grandfather, mentioned that in the year Taf Reish Ches, it's going to be a case. It's the end of times when Mashiach has to come. And when they asked the Tzemach Tzedek, when the year Tov Reish Ches arrived, 5,608 came. Now it's 5,785. 5,608 came and Mashiach didn't come. So they asked him, what happened? Alter Rebbe said, Mashiach was supposed to come, Tov Reish Ches. So the Tzemach Tzedek explained, Hiskayim Bakach, Shebe'oisei Hashana Nitfas HaSefer Lakoti Torah. In the year Tov Reish Ches, in the year 5,608 to the Hebrew calendar, the Lakoti Torah, the collection of Amorim of the Alter Rebbe, was printed. What's that? What's the connection? We're talking about Mashiach. You're telling me Lakoti Torah, Amorim were printed. So the Rebbe explains in the brackets, Shari Achidush shall be as HaMashiachus, Sha'oz Yikuyim Malar, it's Deus Hashem. Mashiach's times is about knowing Hashem. Chassidus is the part of that knowledge of Hashem. Another series of Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe known as Torah Or. Lekutei Torah is really a second half of the Sefer Torah Or. They had to stop printing it under that name. They had to change the name, but it was really a series. Torah Or is primarily Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe on the Chumash and Bereishis and Shmos. Lekutei Torah is primarily, even though there's some overlap, Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe of the latter Chumashim. They had to change the name because the government stopped them from printing Torah Or, so they got around it by calling it a different name. But the main thing is, these were all Mamorim of the Alter Rebbe that was printed. In Shnas Tovkuf Tzadik Zayin, the year 5,597, the Davke Kashar Limbo Pnimis HaTorah Boifen Kazeh Azai Yisparnusun Misifre de Loch V'Yefutzamayas Baal Shem Tov Shiz Galusei Hoyse Besmichus L'Shnas Tovkuf. The Baal Shem Tov's revelation, we know, was close to the year 5,500. We said, when we will go into 5,500 plus, that's going to be when the revelations are coming down from above. The Baal Shem Tov became revealed to the world a little bit before that, a few years before the year 5,500. And the whole idea of Chassidus, and the whole idea of Pnimius HaTorah, and the whole idea of the Alter Rebbe's Chassidus and Chassidus Chabad is studying the inner part of the Torah, not the way it was in the Zohar or even in the writings of the Rizal that was still not well understood. What the Rebbe calls Yisparnusun Menei. To have Parnasa means it's something that you can derive benefit from. You are enjoying it, you are eating it up like you, it's permeating you. Until Chassidus Chabad came along, the Pnimius HaTorah was still very makivdik, very transcendent. So at that time, the inner part of the Torah became in a way of Yisparnusen. And also at that time, about 300 years ago, the sciences and so on developed starting 300 years or around 300 years ago. So the Rebbe asks, top of the next page, V'tzarech lahavin, b'shleim ha'tam she's galus pnimis ha'torah hi'achon la'lo b'shvi'ah muvenu. To say that pnimis ha'torah, we said there's a connection between the inner part of the Torah, Deus Hashem, with Mashiach's times. Ki me'achar she'b'moisa Mashiach is chadish inin molar Deus Hashem kamayim liyom mechasim, harim masim shalifnei zman zeh ka'achon l'kach Tizgala Pnimius HaTorah Sheme'ein Torah Mashiach. The inner part of the Torah that we're studying now, Chassidus and so on, this is all similar to what's going to be studied when Mashiach comes. So therefore, by the revelation of it now, it's a precursor, it's a preface, it's leading into what's going to be when Mashiach comes. Aval Eizer Shayches Yesh Ben Ispatchos Vizgalos Chachmas HaOlam Ben La'Lo B'Shviyah. Why? If they discover the microwave, electricity, how to fly to the moon, what does that have to do with preparing the world for Mashiach's times? Chadam machtam means together. Moving sheyesh kesher v'yachas b'neim. Shezeh gufa sheschila azis galos chadasha b'chachmas ha'toyra kachon l'yimais Mashiach. Goram li'ispat chus chachmas ha'olam. The Rebbe is saying here an amazing thing. The fact that the Zohar puts these two topics together, it's not two separate preparations for Mashiach. There could be preparation A for Mashiach, which is the revelation of the inner part of the Torah, and preparation B for Mashiach, which is the revelation of the sciences. No, the Zohar puts them together, which means they're interconnected. Not only are they just interconnected, but the reason why the sciences started developing and becoming revealed so much in the last 300 years is because Pnimius HaTorah became revealed in the last 300 years. With our love, we need to understand. They're completely different. The inner part of the Torah is so much higher than the chachmas of the world and the sciences. So how can you even associate one with the other? So he starts explaining Beis, ha'olam kuloi al kol ha'nimtza boi, nivra b'shvil ha'toira b'shvil Yisrael. V'chol ma'ashe bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamoi, loi bra'oi ela l'chvoidoi. ומזה מובן שתכלס ושלמס הכוונה שבכל דבר נברא הוא בכך שהוא מנוצל על בני ישראל לעבודת השם. This is a general rule across the board. Anything and everything in this world's ultimate purpose is for Hashem's sake. If we don't use it towards that direction, then it's not being used towards full purpose. I'd like to give a silly example of this. Let's say a kid was given a computer in the times when there used to be CD drives. And he decided, you know what? I can put my cocoa on the CD drive. That's where he puts his cocoa. He doesn't use the computer, but he presses the CD drive and thing pops out. He has a nice little stand for his cocoa. It might be good, it might be cute, it might be nice, but that's not the purpose that a $500, $1,000 computer is made for, so you should be able to have a stand for your cocoa. The same thing. There are many things in this world, but ultimately the purpose of all the things is to bring to the service of Hashem. And if we miss that last mark, it's like a guy using the computer console to be able to put his coffee on. It's not being used for the purpose that it's meant to be used. שהכוונה בהספתחוס חוכמס העולם הוא בלשון התניא להשתנם משבהן לעבודת השם ולתורתו. In Perek Ches and Tanya, he speaks about that if a person should not spend his mind's energy on sciences, on intellectual pursuit outside of Torah study, unless he knows how to use the sciences and the studies of sciences either to serve Hashem or to be able to understand things in Torah. So the Rebbe right away says, not everybody can say, I'm going to study science, I'm going to study all the different types of philosophies, and I will use it for the service of Hashem. Not everybody can handle it. Not every mind can handle it. Specifically, great people like the Rambam and the Ramban and their colleagues, they knew how to use it out for that purpose. This is also an answer about the Rebbe, because the Rebbe was on that level that he would know how to use it. That know how to use sciences and so on for Torah. Like the Alter Rebbe says over there in Perek Ches and Tanya, that when a person uses his mind for things that are not for the sake of Kedusha, so then the highest part of his godly soul, which is the Chochmah Bina Das, he's investing and immersing in matters of Klippa. And here the Rebbe is going to explain how anything that we're about to say does not in any way give a certification or a seal of approval to attending college. That's out of the question. Ois Gimel. L'chol hanal ein kol shaychus l'shaylos halimudim b'michlala university, going to college or university. וכיוצא בזה, שבהם ישנו איסור חמור וסכנה, וחמיר הסכנתא מייסורא, the Chazal say that danger is even more severe than prohibitions. So first of all, he says, the first problem with attending colleges, ki kol ha'avir va'ashkafa shal arba amas elu b'moistis elu b'doiris seinu ela, you see, Yaakov? Chadurim b'kfira b'ashgacha prati shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Its entire premise is permeated by the fact that Hashem does not run the world. Meaning, their whole approach is she'ein shum davar ha'koach she'yochel le'is'arav b'hanagas ha'olam v'chukav. Nothing can interfere, nothing can stop the natural laws. That is the underlying premise of any type of science course. And to such a degree, they don't even have to say it as way introduction. They don't have to introduce the course by saying, we're going to teach physics, but you should know that there's no power that can interfere with these things. They don't even have to say it. It's axiomatic. That there's no possibility that Hashem, or there's a power that's beyond the world. That is one problem. The complete denial of a power that's above the world. Second problem, they learn things that are against Torah. They learn about idolatry. They learn about atheistic beliefs and so on. That this is explicitly prohibited according to Torah. The Rebbe brings in the footnote from the Rambam that not only aren't you allowed to study books that enumerate heretical teachings, but you're not even allowed to think about it. You need to right away push it out of your mind. And number 3, top of the next page, the Rebbe says the problem with going to college, uberubam kikulam gidrei habusha v'atznius ne'adarim ad shemaligim umisloitzim al elo ha'meschashim bekach. The whole idea of modesty and be acting in a modest manner, dressing in a modest manner, and so on, it's completely lacking in the universities and colleges. One second. Va'adraba. Kol haparutz b'yoisa. Give me 2 more paragraphs. Okay. Whoever is the most opposite of tznius, that's what it means parutz in the expression of Chazal, naile yoiser v'chulu, they're considered the more, the heroes. The nerds, they dress like more modestly and so on. Ukimiforsim, the Rebbe says it's well known, hamatzav ha'oyim b'campusim, b'me'oinus in the dormitories, b'mekoyim satil, the place where they spend their time, ve'in laharich b'dover hamavil b'chlal b'midah ha'yuma kanal b'frat. The Rebbe doesn't like to speak about negative things, and especially something as shocking as the situation on college campuses, and to the terrible degree that it's going on. One more paragraph before your question. Ubiyachas latainam forsem she'omer ha'adam shehu ahi lo yinazik v'yamid b'nesayin chulu. There are people that say, don't worry, this won't touch me. My belief in Hashem is strong. My standards of morality and tznius and modesty is strong. So the Rebbe says, we know that a Yid always tries to avoid any types of challenges to Yiddishkeit. Mefursam gama mayna pasha, there's an obvious answer to this. Shafilu tzadik gamor beyoyim ha'achron shel shnas chayav hameya ve'esrim alei adamas. You have a tzaddik. A whole life he was perfect. The last day of his 120 years, what does he say at the beginning of his day? In the brachas in the morning, before he even starts davening, ubetchilas hayoim v'koydem sheyispalel mevakesh ma'Hashem yizbarach al tiviyein ildei nesoyim. Even the greatest tzaddik, 120 years of being a tzaddik, in the morning, before he even comes to shul, when he's making the morning brachas, he says, don't bring me to any challenges. I don't want to be in a situation where I might fall through. The Rebbe says, really, we can go on and on about this. This is not the place for it. Yes, you want to ask a question.
קודם כל, יש אוניברסיטאות שהן כמו ישיבה אוניברסיטית.
זה משהו אחר,
בבר-אילן.
על זה לא מדובר כאן. כאן לא מדבר על זה. יכולים לדבר על זה אחר כך, אבל זה לא מדובר כאן.
הדבר השני, יש גם מקצועות שלא מדברים בהם על טבע, למשל עורך דין.
So, but usually the colleges don't let you just take that course that's just necessary for עורך דין. You need to have a broad knowledge of all the other shtuyot.
And what about if you want to become a doctor? Chabad doesn't believe in people that are going to become doctors?
Not by going to college, no. If yes, perhaps we could discuss the option of Yeshiva University, but like we said, this is a dangerous place to go. Just because you want to become a doctor doesn't mean you have to endanger either your life or your spiritual life. Ois Dalet, page 44. So again, this was all a Maimon HaMusgar. This was all parenthetical about the evils of college. We're going back to how the last few hundred years of the revelation of science is part of Mashiach's revelation, part of preparing the world for Mashiach's times. The Zohar connects the entrance into the 7th millennium, Mashiach's times, with the developments of science. Muvan shatiel shel chachmas elu avodas Hashem misbatas be'inyan shu hachana la'chidush yeh b'motzei Mashiach. It must be that this somehow shows some new thing that's going to be when Mashiach comes. So, what's one of the new things that Mashiach is known for? Echad ha'inyanim ha'ikrim she'yischadsheu b'motzei Mashiach hu ha'yihud v'nigla k'vod Hashem v'ro kol basar yachtav kipi Hashem diber da'hainu sha'agilui alakusta la'asid lo yeh rak ba'ofen she'malars deyas Hashem. Not only will we know Hashem when Mashiach comes, intellectually, kanal elagam ba'ofen shel v'ro kol basar sha'basar ha'gashmi yira kipi Hashem diber. Physical flesh will see God. Koloimar, lo tir re'iyah be'ein ha'seichel ha'ruchni belvad. Just in our mind's eye we'll perceive Hashem. Elagam kfi shemarach admor emtzoi re'iyah gashmis ba'ein ha'gashmi. The physical eye will see godliness. We don't understand it, but that's the way it's going to be when Mashiach comes. Just like I mentioned this before a microscope was invented, we had no idea that in this table there's atoms, electrons, neutrons, all these different things. We couldn't see it. And we had no idea about it. Once we had the tool of the microscope, all of a sudden we're able to see it. When Mashiach comes, our eyes will have the tools necessary to be able to see the godliness in the world. That we say in davening, it's not just the eyes, it's literally the flesh itself. And on Chabad.org they have an article, maybe I'll send it to you, where science has now used for people that suffer from eye problems, they can't see with their eyes, where they figured out how to connect certain leads to certain sensitive parts of the body, the tongue, or the stomach, or somewhere else, and third place I don't remember where, and because that part of the body is very sensitive and it's connected to certain type of machines, they could see with that, without using the eyes. So we see that the physical flesh, even the places that's not the eye, is capable of the power of sight, and that's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, that the flesh, not just the eyes, are going to be able to see Hashem.
And Chabad.org is connecting to this? Or just like
no, I think they were just talking in general. This word is also in general brought down to this. V'ro kol basar. It's not just the eyes, it's the flesh. So because of that, they must probably brought that in. Ki nitzel chachmas ha'olam la'avodas Hashem le'torasai misayeya ba'achana le'me'ein v'ro kol basar re'iyah gashris u'mukshis binyan ha'avodas Hashem. By using the sciences for the service of Hashem, This now brings us, this is the, like we said before, the preface, the introduction, when we will actually be able to see Hashem with our flesh. Dugma l'davar. So he gives an example of where we see that something that we are aware of now is going to help for Mashiach's times awareness of Hashem. Echad mikoich sateva shoyekayim misheishim mebereishis v'chol takvoyel shebnei adam leyadu imenu v'nizgala v'nizpateach b'shanim ha'achroinis who have sharis shekoil adam daber b'mokim mesuyam yishama take from miyad berichuk mokim ad katzvi eretz l'levana v'chulai de telephone or saying mizoi de radio. The fact that it's possible for a person's voice to be heard all over, even as far as the moon, which is something that's part of nature. It's just it was only discovered recently. But it's not like somebody changed nature all of a sudden, and all of a sudden now you could talk to the moon. No, they discovered the natural laws that would allow them to use what's been built into nature since the beginning of creation, that we have the capability even to speak with such far distances, even to the moon. Not just to hear them, but to see the person and all their movements. We can finally have an actual sense of what it says in Pirkei Avos, that you should know what's above you. There's an eye that sees and an ear that hears. So you see, Hashem is in the heavens. What does Hashem know what's going on down here? But by us seeing how it's possible for us down here to see what's going on in the moon, so that gives us a sense of this idea how Hashem, wherever He is, can see what I'm doing. V'adrab, im ha'oizen shalamata yichol lishmaya miyad. Val derech za ayin shalamata idei spatchus koich tivi acher yichol liroy sanasa bekatzve tevel. Alachas kama v'kama v'negia kiviyachol ha'oizen va'ayin shalamaylam. Hanoita oizen Allah yishmayim yoitzerayin Allah yabit. We know that Hashem is the one that created the ear. And He was the one that created the eye. If He created the ear and the eye, obviously He's going to have the power of hearing and He's going to have the power of sight. And therefore, if He implanted us with these powers, He should have it to the greater degree. Shebezeh ein kol agbolah chas v'shalom v'chol ma sh'adam oisa afilu b'chadr chadarim hini b'oisa rega mamash ayin roya v'oizen shemas v'meil v'chol masecha b'sefer nechtavim. Since Hashem's sight and Hashem's hearing has no limitations that a human hearing has and human sight has, so a human being theoretically can lock himself in a room and nobody's going to see him and nobody's going to hear him. But since Hashem is the inventor, if you will, of sight and of hearing, so nothing can stand in His way. Wherever I am and whatever I'm doing, Hashem is able to see this. So now we see how science contributes to a person's service of Hashem. But even sheyesh l'adam dugma muchshis le'inyan zeh harei hisbananusi binyan v'in Hashem nitzav Allah v'mabit Allah v'boichin kloyis v'levim oiv dekaroi. When a person needs to think about Hashem standing over him, so it makes it so much easier for him to appreciate thanks to the strides we made in science. Is loytier rak b'derech hasag shel seichel yuni asher lav davke sheyesh lo meloy hashpah al adam ela ba'ofen hakarav yosel lehergesh magashmin shel adam umemela ba'ofen hapoel yosel al midas shebelev ad lemachshava dibur ma'aseh. Chassidus always talks about that moyach shalat alev, the power of the mind is to affect the heart. Yet we know it's difficult. As much as I understand something intellectually, often it won't come to affect my heart. I got to work very hard, and it won't come to affect my thought, my speech, my deed. But if I see something in my world that reflects this, it makes it so much easier. So before the advances in science, that we knew how you could see and hear something across the world, across the universe, So for me to be able to appreciate that Hashem is standing over me and seeing and hearing everything is not as powerful as it is now when I can actually see an example of that. So it comes out that the sciences is helping me in my service of Hashem. Vav, Hagam shekol inyonei olam nivru b'shvil HaTorah b'shvil Yisrael. B'chol zeh metzinu shetzinu chazal v'ivdilu inyonim mesumyamim b'hadgisham shehem nivru ach v'rak b'chdei l'shtamish b'hem le'inyim mesuyim shel Torah mitzvos. ולדוגמה, לא היה עולם ראוי להשתמש בזהב, ולמה נברא בשביל המשכן בשביל בית המקדש. The Rebbe points out a very interesting thing. We said before that everything in this world is made for Hashem's glory, for the sake of Hashem. So a Yid should use it out for Hashem's service. Despite that, there are certain things which Chazal make a point of saying, you know why this was created? Only to be used in a holy manner. Like it says about gold. The world was not worthy of gold, and the only reason gold was created was for the sake of being used in all the different things that we needed, golden vessels and golden clothes and different things in the Beis HaMikdash and the Mishkan. What's the difference? Isn't everything in the world made for the Eibishter? Isn't metal, every metal made for the Eibishter? Isn't a tree made for being used for Hashem? Why does the Chazal point out specifically certain things and not others? So the Rebbe says, "V'achiluk bein inyonim mesuyamim elu l'chol shar hanivroim hu shar inyonei habriya v'af shegam hem nivru rak b'shvil HaTorah b'shvil Yisrael harei kavonas briyosam yichoylo lismalei gam kasher hashimush b'hem b'poyel u'b'inyonei ha'olam l'divrei reshus chul." When we say that all things in the world were created for Hashem's honor, that doesn't mean necessarily that every single thing in the world must be used for a holy activity. Rather, it can be used for a regular activity, and then from that you will do something holy. So for example, I eat food, so eating food is not a holy activity. But when I eat food, I have the energy, I can daven, I can learn, I can do mitzvahs. I go to work. Work is not a holy activity by itself, but through going to work, I have money. I can do with the money, I can do mitzvahs. That's everything in the world. It doesn't have to be used in a holy manner. It can be used for the sake of something later being used holy. For the sake of heaven. But when the Chazal point to a certain thing and say, this was made for that holy thing, that's the purpose. The holiness is the purpose. So he says, Masha'enken al azov l'dugma nemar sh'loi hoya oilam roi l'shtamish bezov hainu sha'ashimush bezov l'tzarchi ha'oilam hu yirida avur azov. It's like gold was such a special thing. Gold to be used for anything else other than what's holy is a descent for the gold. It's a lowering of the gold. It's a misuse of the gold. Lefisha kol tam briyasi hu rak al manasha hashimush bo yekol kuli l'tzorcha mishkan v'amigdash. Shekiven shetzarach shtiya la'adam b'chira chavshis l'chein barak HaKadosh Baruch Zazav ba'ifin she'efshel l'shtamish b'gam shaloi b'shvil ha'mishkan b'shvil beis ha'migdash. Hashem gave us free choice. So because we have free choice, we could use the gold for the Beis HaMikdash, or we could use gold for other things. But the true nature of gold, being so special, is meant to be for holiness.
Why didn't it disappear after Beis HaMikdash?
It's first of all, that's part of the Bechira Chavshus that we cannot openly see. That only when the Beis HaMikdash exists, that's when the gold is there, because then you're going to see the godly nature of the gold. You don't want to have open revelations of godliness, because then that's going to take away from our free choice to be able to choose to do bad. So therefore, we have to think that the world runs in a normal way. If the gold would have disappeared when the Beis HaMikdash went away, so then all of a sudden we would think, oh wow, there's something in the world that's like supernatural. Hashem couldn't have that in the world.
Hashem say that for Trump's battle.
when we talk about sciences being an introduction to Mashiach's times, the Rebbe is going to say, it's not just to help us see more about godliness and Hashem's involvement with us, but there has to be something in science itself that is Mashiach-like. Not just by recognizing, for example, Hashem is watching over us, so therefore we will come to this preparation for knowing Hashem when Mashiach comes. There must be something in the sciences itself that has a holy nature in it. Hakishur bezoyer bein ispatchus chochmas ha'olam lizgal pnimis ha'toyra va'alo b'shviyah mimenu gufa raya shezoi kol hakavana b'ispatchusam. Just like the gold, the entire purpose of the gold is for the Mishkan and the Mikdash. From the fact that the Zohar puts it together and says this is a preparation for Mashiach, that means that the entire development of the sciences was as an introduction to Mashiach's times. Top of page 46. How is it possible we could use the advances in sciences for something negative? Again, that's because Bechira Chavshis. V'hainu shayde etzem hayechoilis lahafik mechachmas ha'olam te'elas v'avayis Hashem. Al derech hanal sifdala dadayin ein nishlemes tachlis hamitis bisbat chusam ki bederech zu hein atzman einon ele inyonim shel reshus olam shemehen miskabelas te'elas mesiyamis binyon avayis Hashem. You cannot say that it's just for the sake you will learn a lesson in Avodas Hashem. So then that's like everything else in the world, that you're using your work to be able to make money, so you'll be able to use with your money for mitzvahs. It's got to be something more internal connection with the sciences. Kiven shazoyer mekasher ispat chusan lizman is gals primis hatoyram tzarich loymar sheikar amachuvim bekach und nitzulon lizgalus va'afotzas primis hatoyram. So there must be, since the Zohar puts it together, like we said before, the development of the inner part of the Torah, the revelation of the secrets of the Torah, and the advances in sciences. The Zohar is putting that together. That must mean that one reflects and is bound up with the other. Vav, he's going to explain how. Zayin. One thing is, one thing is, the earth will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. That's point number one. And then that will be that every flesh will see it. What we have with the advancement of science is a type of preparation of seeing Hashem in the world in a way that the world is filled with the knowledge of Hashem. From science we could see that. And from science we could see how even the physical flesh is able to see Hashem.
When you're saying flesh, it means Goyim and Jews, or it means all animals?
All animals? That's an interesting question. I don't remember exactly what it says about animals. It says that the revelation of godliness will affect the animals, that they will not be killing each other when Mashiach comes. I'm not sure about seeing godliness. That's an interesting question.
It can be both, and it doesn't mean necessarily only Jews.
I hear what you... That's true. It doesn't only mean Jews. It means also non-Jews. But I don't remember about the issue about the animals. That's an interesting question.
Because the flesh is it's not saying man.
Right. I hear what you're saying. Dugma l'davar. So he gives an example of where we see similar that we find in science what's going to be with Mashiach's times, the world being filled with the knowledge of Hashem. Kasher mishtamshim beradio la'afotzas pnimis ha'Torah, hari aideze nishma inyan hanilmad b'pnimis ha'Torah begashmis u'b'chol katz v'tev. What does radio do when you broadcast a shir over the radio? So it's all over the world physically. That shir Torah is in every end of the world. Everywhere and anywhere, even if there's no radio receiver, that doesn't mean that the radio waves did not reach over there. The actual radio signal reaches everywhere. The different receivers do not create any radio waves. They're just receivers, and sometimes they need to modulate it and change it and make it be able to be perceptible by the human ear. But they are only grabbing what's there in the air. בשימוש בחוכמת העולם הפצת פנימיות התורה ישנה מעין א' מול הארץ דאס השם גוימר ללוישם מקבוז בכל מקום ומקום. By using the advances in technology to spread Chassidus all over the world, Chassidus is the knowledge of Hashem. So we have something similar to Hashem's to the knowledge of Hashem that's going to fill the entire world when Moshiach comes. Beis that every flesh can perceive it. The physical voice is heard all over at that moment. Again, the Rebbe says this is still not the ultimate of how the advances in science are like and expressing Mashiach type of experience. Yes, it's similar, and it's a precursor, and it's an introduction, but it's not almost the same. The last point that the Rebbe is going to bring is, what's it called, the unification theory, something, I forgot, there's a theory called of unity, that achdus in all creation, I forgot the scientific term, like unification theory, but I got the term not exactly right. We're still only using the sciences for something else. When you look at the actual science itself, there's no connection with holiness. It's just by using the radio waves or some other advances in science to transmit Torah all over the globe, so then you see this type of filling of the world with godly knowledge. But it's not the science of it, it's the usage of it. We need to see in the sciences itself, in the advances of sciences, something that expresses the manner of approach to the world when Mashiach comes. So he says one of the things that this is visible in, Pnimius HaTorah ba'legalsa achtas ha'pshuta shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam asher mebli habeit al kach sheyeshnom ribui nevraim hine ribui zeh einoi bestira la'achtas ha'pshuta shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu shekein adraba haribui gufa nevea davkim etzad ha'achtas ha'pshuta shal HaKos kemevur mekam mekoimes. What Chassidus came to reveal is that despite the fact that we see multiple creations, still in all, the world is permeated by Hashem's oneness. And Hashem's oneness is not in any way diminished because of the multiplicity of the world. Since in truth the world is made through Hashem's oneness, so in truth, if we dig deep enough, we see not that the world is complex, meaning made of many different parts, but the deeper down you drill, you see more and more common things until you actually see this, what I said, this unity theory. The Indians האחדות שישנה בעולם, שהפנימיוס היא האחדות הפשוטה דלקוס, הולך ומסגלה יויסר ויויסר מספתחוס חוכמוס העולם. As there are greater advances in science, the more we see the unity in the physical world from the scientific perspective. בעבר היו בני אדם סבורים שכל אחד מכוח הטבע הוא כוח נפרד בפני עצמו ושהחומר שכל מציאות בעולם מורכב מרבי יסודות שונים. What they thought in past was there's multiple elements, multiple parts, everything is complex, there's many details. אך כל שמסקדמס ההספתחוס חוכמוס העולם מגיעים יויסר להכרה שריבוי הפירוט זה בהרכב היסודות רק אין חיצוני. All this multiplicity is only an external aspect. It's the way the parts come together. It's the degree, how constricted it is, how much it expands. In scientific terminology, this means matter and energy. The more you drill down, the more you see, there's so many different elements on the scientific element table, but what it all boils down to, when you drill down further and further and further, what do you see? It's only energy and matter. That's it. Achtus apshuta yashne belakus mitzad alakus v'chem mitzias hanivra mitzad atzmai medas ha'isachtus shnei pratim kamas ve'echos. When it comes to godliness, godliness is pure oneness. So there's no two parts. When it comes to the created being, the way it stands on its own, over there's two parts. There's energy and matter, or the way he expresses it over here, quantity and quality. But essentially, it's all about coming to a state of unity, because that's what's going to become revealed when Moshiach comes, Hashem's unity in the world. הקשר בין ספתחוס חוכמוס העולם להסגלוס להבדל של פנימיוס התורה כהכנה לכך שיסתכן עלמא לעלה בשביעה. גילוי פנימיוס התורה מביא ממילא גם מספתחוס חוכמוס העולם. כי על ידי זה נעשה המעין דתורתו של משיח אשר מגלה אחדות של הקדוש ברוך הוא בעולם באופן שמעין על פניו דורל כל בשר גויים שהעולם גופה נעשה כלי לאחדות השם ועניין האחדות נראה בעולם גופה. Science gives us the capability of seeing with our eyes the unity in the world, and that is an introduction for when Moshiach comes, we're going to see the oneness of Hashem in the world. Vazayin nechneses bleiv ha'odam ha'avona shebe'emes achdus zu eine davar echad acher mulvad ha'achs ha'pshuta dalakus ha'mizgal ha'pnimius ha'toira v'aydezi yistakin alma la'ala b'shviah b'karz mamish. This will lead us to the actual revelation that's going to come with Moshiach.